Okay. Howdy. um, Drew it a little bit better this time, although sloppy in some other regards. But um, sorry, I was thinking about just like starting the video over, but I'm like, you know what? No, it doesn't. That's not what matters. Um, so I guess we'll go ahead and do our breath, and then we'll go ahead and get into it. So, we'll do one a little bit more interesting than the normal like G breath. Okay, um, so just follow my lead. Um, Remember that when you're doing the breath, make sure to breathe in as deeply as you can comfortably, and breathe out as much as you can comfortably. And to remember to focus on the quality of your breathing, and remember to take a moment to hold it in and take a moment to hold it out after you breathe out. So the prayer will be, and you can say the prayer as a standalone, you can say the prayer out loud or in your mind. Just make sure to say it as a standalone statement. Don't, make sure to just say it by itself. Like, don't string it along with anything else. So, and it'll be a prayer this time. So the prayer is, Lord Jesus Christ, resonance. Now begin by breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Half breath in mouth. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. Today we're going to talk about the yellow seed wave spell. I just want to go ahead and state, that the previous two wave spells are the central wave spells, right? Wave spells 10 and 11, which was the white mirror and then the blue monkey. Those are the two very central wave spells, and they are highly linked to mathematics that are embedded within the Tao Te Ching, which the Tao or Tao is all about going into the center, right? Because the very two central wave spells are you're going into your deeply into yourself. This begins that process to come back out and come back to the world. And it begins on kin 144 and ends on kin 156. So 144 is a very interesting number. Not only is it 12 squared, but it is also the 12th Fibonacci number. And this is the 12th wave spell. Okay. The 12 essentially refers to the auxiliary aspects of all these mathematics. So, every wave spell, as it focuses in on each one, specifically the seventh one, there are 12 auxiliary, basically meaning you have 12 like externalized aspects to that central, which is the 13. But if you include all 13, it is the number 7, which acts as that CPU, right? And it also refers to the zodiac in this sense, right? So you have this aspect of 12 around 1. You have Jesus with his 12 disciples. There's many other instances of 12s in the Holy Bible. For instance, of New Jerusalem, it's talking about a hypercube, right? And you have the faces of that hypercube, which you have the 6 main faces on the outer cube, and then the 6 faces of the inner cube. And it's all centered around that CPU, which is the heart of it. It is the Sabbath, right? It is the very center. And every energy field has that aspect in this sense. The seed is talking about the heart, right? It is talking about the thing itself. And as we know, the seed symbolizes the word. And in this case, it also means thought or idea. Because every thought or idea that you have, or anything that you learn, right? So say you get into learning about, mathematics or geometry or the Bible and stuff. In your preliminary study or research, you only know so much. But as you go over it again and again and learn it, eventually newer perspectives come. So every idea or anything that you observe or you study, it gets planted as a seed in your mind, right? As a word, right? As an idea. And then it takes time for it to grow. And then as it grows and it blooms, then it produces a fruit, which contains a new seed. So as you become more aware or intelligent of something, then naturally you're going to get newer ideas to which that can be planted again. And you can basically, it's the process of learning. It's the process of deepening your understanding of something. Because as you become more aware of something, you get newer insights in this sense. Revelations in that sense, ideas, epiphanies, etc. And that is what the seed symbolizes, right? The never-ending process of new ideas, because the seed represents the new idea, and then the growing aspect of that represents the refinement process of learning and etc. And then the blooming in that sense basically now presents you with the time of ripening, which gives you the fruit. And then by consuming that fruit, you get the new seed, and so on and so forth. Um, so yeah, not only is the seed and this whole growth pattern highly symbolic with Jesus, it's also um, a solar seal. It is the fourth solar seal, right? Because it's talking about form, right? As you can see, this little seed up here is planted into the ground, right? But yeah, so looking at the wave spell here, we have the magnetic tone, and in this case, it is the yellow seed, kin 144 yellow magnetic seed, which begins tomorrow. And again, as I've mentioned before, the magnetic tone of any wave spell gives it the purpose. As well as anybody who is born on a magnetic tone can basically leads their group of kin family members in the process and the purpose of doing so. I also basically think of yellow seed as like the person who gives ideas, the person who researches, the person who reads, the person who is a storyteller, etc., the teacher in this sense, because they go around planting seeds of new ideas into people's minds, right? So that is the purpose of this wave spell, right? So going back to the Tao cycles of especially centered around wave spells 10 and 11, that was more of like an internal processing change, right? We were changing, and now we are coming to fruition, and now we're bringing this back out into the world, right? Now we're bringing these concepts back out into the world, and basically showing people what changes we've undergone and what we want to share with people. We have a more clear idea of who we are and our purpose here, right? So that's the magnetic tone of this wave spell. Going into the following kin, we have the lunar tone, or the polar lunar tone in this sense. It basically represents the challenge, right? Because the seed has to be processed through our bodies, right? And the red serpent is the energetic life force that's flowing through our bodies. And we all have to, in a sense, carry that burden of responsibility in our bodies, right? It's the challenge of being the vessel for that which we represent, that which is our purpose. And it can be very challenging, because in this world, the more pure your ideas are, the more selfless you are, right? The more wisdom you gain, but at the same time, the harder the challenge is in your body, right? Because if you are acting as the vessel for the change you want to see in the world, you have to carry that responsibility with you. You have to carry that burden with you. And as of right now, in this world, it is very difficult for us who are on a spiritual path, because our bodies are holding on to a lot of the collective energy, a lot of the collective karma that's passing through the entire species, right? And it's not easy, right? It's not easy whatsoever, but it has to be processed and deleted in this sense. It has to stop at us. We can't just pass the buck. And like if people, like for instance, anger manifests as seeds. And when we go around and project our anger onto people and get mad at them and stuff like that, we're planting seeds of anger and fear and aggression and all these things into other people by projecting that emotion onto them. And if they go around and then like basically we're all passing energy to each other. And when somebody does that, they pass this negative energy onto somebody. That person either has to hold on to it themselves and then process and delete it, right? By voiding it in that sense, hiding a multitude of sins, as it says in the Bible, or just pass it on to the next person, right? And unfortunately, not anybody wants to hold this ball, right? Not many people want to hold, like be the one to have to where that sin stops at, right? Don't worry about being crucified or anything like that. Granted, I'm gonna say you never know what can happen, but don't fear that you're going to be crucified, because the whole crucifixion and death and resurrection thing is more symbolic than it is physical. Not to say that it isn't physical, but remember in the Bible when Jesus says, what was it? Or no, it wasn't Jesus that said it, but it was said about Jesus when that woman came up in the crowd when he was like surrounded by a throng of people, and she went up and touched his cloak just to heal herself, and she did, and she does touch his cloak, and she's instantly healed. It says that he felt virtue gone out of him, almost as if that good energy was inside him, and as soon as she touched him, it went out of him and into her. So it's basically saying that the good energy is inside Jesus, and almost as if people are trying to get that out of him in that sense. As well as it says that he bare their infirmities, meaning that he's taking their infirmities out of them and he's holding it onto himself to where it ultimately accumulated and got him crucified. You see what I'm saying? So in a lot of ways, it sucks to hold on to that negative energy, but it has to stop at us. There is a way to process it. It is going to be painful. It is going to be challenging, but there is a way to process it, and that is through the breath and understanding the geometries and the mathematics of the breath, because then we can literally dispel, negate, and void that karmic energy, right? And everybody does it in different ways, right? Everybody, some people upload it to God and let God deal with it, basically, to where they can receive. Basically, they are message senders who send the energy to God. Other people draw it onto themselves, right? And then process it and delete it inside their heart. Other people are downloading that karmic energy straight to them, right? And basically the ones who sent it out up, and now they're the ones that are bringing it back down. And then other ones are basically constantly drawing it to themselves, and they're basically using the breath to send it back to where it belongs, right? Rather than always basically taking it onto themselves. They're not intentionally sending it to any one person, but they're basically just sending it out and letting it go where it's supposed to go, in that sense, right? There's a lot of things that go into that, but that's essentially the essence of the challenge of this Wavespell is my point. I'm sorry that I went on too long about that, but it's the seeds of information that we're drawing. We're not just drawing the seeds of revelation straight from God, but we're also receiving energy from everything and everyone around us. That's my point. And that's why the red serpent, or the life force energy, is the challenge of this Wavespell, is my point. But we get into the service. What is the service? Well, it's the world bridger, right? The world bridger is basically that energy which, when we go beyond that threshold of death, and I'm not talking about actual death. No, I would never recommend anyone, to dare that or to risk that. It's a symbolic death, meaning that when you feel like, this is the service, by the way, so this is how we are going to give back and do our part in this Wavespell. And everybody does it in different ways, but whenever you feel like you're getting to that point of ego death, when you feel like, oh, if I do that, like, for instance, if people are being, dumping all their negative energy on you, and you feel like, if I keep, surrendering and letting them do this to me, it's either going to hurt me, or it's going to make me look like it's going to make me look weak, and then therefore they are going to keep doing it and whatever. It's that surrender to that service, that self-sacrifice. When you feel like you sense that threshold, like to go past it and self-sacrifice in that sense. Not again, not your physical body and your death, but just that it's that fear of that ego death in that sense. That's the service, right? We have to go, to that threshold and understand that it is a bridge to another world, and that what lies beyond it is either reward or punishment. If you do the wrong thing, what lies beyond that threshold is punishment. Just because that if you hurt people, or if you do the wrong thing, that's all that you're going to get back. Or if you do the right thing and you choose to bear the burden rather than put the burden on somebody else, then what lies beyond that threshold is rejoicing in God's mercy and love and glory, etc. It's basically, that's the service in that sense, is having to, let go and have those ego deaths. You can't put the pain and the burden on other people, in other words, right? The thing about this, Ken, sorry, I should have been doing this. The thing about this, Ken, is it begins the Omega Run, which is a 10-day galactic activation portal sequence. It's the second half of it, essentially. So from back in Ken 106 to 115 was the Alpha Run, which was the active principle. It's the active part. Now it's the passive aspect, the feminine aspect, which is just, we've already established the changes that were going to take place in the Omega Run during the Alpha Run, but now we're just seeing the result. So there's really not much that you can do about it at this point, but it's showing you the result, right? So this is when it begins another very important cycle, a 10-day cycle, going from 146 all the way to this crystal tone Ken right here, Ken 155. But just remember that self-sacrifice is greatly rewarded by God. And I'm not talking about getting yourself killed, but surrendering and being humble and bearing other people's burdens, and to not put it on other people, to put it on yourself and you deal with it. Because through that, like, you don't even need to have understanding of the breath, because if you understand energy and you do the right thing, you void it. Okay, you get rid of it and it's gone, right? Just like how, symbolically Christ died and he paid for the sins, right? So again, we don't have to die, but by carrying out that service and, suffering for the greater good and for your fellow brethren and sistren, right? Your fathers and your mothers, your fellow humans, right? By doing that, you are negating and voiding and getting rid of all that energy, right? And you're paying for the sins of mankind, even though it's not yours to pay. You're doing it anyway because we're the only ones that can do it, us good people. So just be aware of that, okay? This is also really interesting too, because of kin equivalence. Well, I won't get into that. But yeah, so that's the service. This is the purpose. This is the challenge. This is the service. And now we're getting to the form in which we do it, which is the blue self-existing. Sorry, this was yellow magnetic seed. This is red lunar serpent. This is white electric world bridger. And this is Ken 147, blue self-existing hand. Okay, so one interesting thing to note about this number, though, is there are these short little pithy sayings known as the Delphic Maxims, and there are 147 of them. So if you're struggling, go look at those and read them. They're pretty awesome, and they really make you feel better. But this is basically, it's showing the form of our hands. It's showing us the purpose of our hands. Everybody's purpose is different. right? So look to your hands and look at your strengths and realize, what is it that you can do to better the situation? What can you do um, to help in that sense? And really look within, okay? Because this, in terms of your purpose, this is a great kin to reflect on that, right? Blue self-existing hand. It's a great kin to think about that. Your service, right? Your purpose, your skills. What are you good at? You know, this kin 147. It's really going to help with that. So just be aware of that, and don't doubt yourself. You know, even though you may think that what you're here to do may not, you know, when you think about it and then you compare it to other people and this and that, and it doesn't feel all that awesome, think again. Because honestly, what I've learned is that my purpose in this life was not what everybody, as including myself, expected it to be. But now that I think about it, it's like it becomes very clear. You want your life to be a narrow path, right? The straight gate, as Jesus says, right? You want to almost in a way discard all your options so that it makes your path very clear, right? So when you think about all the things that you love doing, your skills, your hobbies, the things that you research, the things that you study, just simplify it. Think of that one thing that you're good at, and the thing that you're passionate about, and the thing that you can help people with, and hone in on that. And then everything else, just you can give a little bit of free time for those things, you know, when at your leisure, because it's not as important as your main purpose, right? And the good thing about, in a lot of ways, you know, helping the people and using a lot of your time, whether if you work a 9 to 5 job or not, you know, in a lot of ways, doing all those things makes your free time a little bit more special. And it's like, you don't have to be a jack of all trades, you know, or, you know, a master in all these things. No, just hone in on that one thing that you're really good at. Okay. And it's the form of our hands. And that is really going to help with understanding the way in which we're going to pitch in through this Wavespell, this chapter. Now we get into tone 5, right, which is Kin 148, yellow overtone star. And tone 5 is essentially understanding the deeper meaning or the nuance aspect to everything of this Wavespell. It's kind of showing us the next level, but it's also showing us all the different overtones, the different ingredients for the whole Wavespell, right? And since it's the yellow star, we're going to see a lot of interesting aspects of the archetypes coming into play, like basically everybody basically crystallizing into their role, everybody being aware of their role and everybody else's role. It's a perfect follow-up for Ken 147, what I just talked about with purpose and your skills and this and that, because tone 5 is about understanding the hierarchy of things, the deeper meaning. Some people have a purpose that's a little bit, not to say that it's more important, but they have a more specific purpose, and other people are there to help them along in that sense, right? And we all need to come to appreciate that in every field, every specialty in this life, some people are good at it, and when the time comes to carry out that task or that purpose, we need to support them and basically be wingmen or wing women to them, right? We need to stop feeling like, we're better than other people, for whatever reason and stuff. Everybody has their own specialty. And this is basically kind of showing the stars in that sense. And what are the stars but our archetypes? Not only the archetypes of our own unique aspects of who we are, but also the archetypes of the story itself, right? And the different plot elements to how life unfolds and this and that. So tone 5, again, like I was saying, is the deeper meaning of things. It's the overtones. It's showing how, each ingredient acts as like a sort of hierarchy in that sense, uh, combined with the yellow star, which is archetype, right? Um, it's pattern, this and that. So those two together, it makes sense too, because you got tone 5, seal 8. Those are both Fibonacci, right? Fibonacci showing us that there's this growth to it. So when you get those energies mixed together and everybody kind of fills their slot, it's like the Star Trek ship where you got one person as navigator, one person as flying the ship, one person's doing the weapons, and everybody fits into their role and they all work together. That's what that's what that's going to be about, right? So now we get into tone 6. Now we understand the deeper meaning of it, which is the unfolding of the stars, right? It's the unfolding of this whole story of why we're here. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I had to rotate the laundry. But yeah, so now that we're all basically becoming aware of each one of our roles and how we fit into a larger pattern as one organism in that sense, right? We're of one mind, we're of one body. The church is Christ's body and we are the different members, and that's what that's kind of showing us, right? Because it's all in the stars. The stories are in the stars and we're playing it out again down here. So now we get into tone 6, which is Ken 149. And now we get into like basically the pattern of organization and equality and balancing and the juggling and the dance in that aspect. Basically the thing that we are fixing in a lot of ways. It's that rhythmic tone going back and forth in that sense. So sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it's left, right, back, forward. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but that's the purpose of that in this sense is of the red moon, which is purification, which is awesome because that's what this whole year is based on, is Kin 69, which is the red self-existing moon. This whole year has been about self-purification, right? In the form of purification and the way that we carry that out. And this is also a prime number. If I'm not mistaken, prime number 35, which that's a number related to our hands, by the way. So just be aware of that. Among other things, of course, but there's, I'm not going to get into that, but it's a prime kin. So just be aware of that. But it's basically the organization of purification, right? I would imagine that the state of society is going to be in a lot better condition after the fact, right? Because that's the thing, is the state of ourselves and the state of society and the state of us as a species and our place in heaven earth is to improve the earth based upon the codes, the seeds coming down from heaven, right? The seeds are coming down. And we have to improve the state of this earth, or not so much the earth, but our little worlds that we've created, the society, our communities. We have to improve the state of that, right? We all have to help each other out and get rid of all these problematic people. And the problematic people who are like little virus cells going around, just vampires, and they're leeching and destroying and extorting people and all kinds of stuff. This is going to be that juggling act of purification. So just remember that if it may get a little chaotic, especially considering that it's a prime kin, just remember that, wait, is it prime 35? Yeah, it is, because 139 is 34, and then, 149 is 35. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be all about purification, right? It's about like just cleaning up our souls, cleaning up that stagnant blood, because the red moon represents the blood, and that's its connection from the red serpent, right? The red serpent's that energy going through the blood, but the red moon itself is that flow of that blood, right? So we're not only cleansing ourselves biologically and getting out a lot of those toxins, but we're also cleaning up our souls. So just be aware of that, right? It's a balance. And that's what tone 6 is all about, balance. Now we get into the CPU of the Wavespell, right? Which is always tone 7. And that is Ken 150, which is the number of Psalms, by the way. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting things contained within this number, but I'm not entirely sure. One thing to note is that there are twin primes here, 149 and 151, and it's right smack dab in the middle of it. So that kind of makes that CPU a little bit, more potent in that sense. But it's basically the heart of the Wavespell. You get to the very central point. This is the purpose. But as we go into it and unfold it and unpack it, this is what's lying at the center. And it just so happens that the white dog is all about love. It's all about heart and loyalty and, just having that care, for one another, for God, for the earth, for the animals, having respect and love for the trees and the plants and the earth and all these things, right? That's what the white dog is about, right? Expressing that love, having that love towards one another, and having that as the central processing unit in that sense, and it being the heart of the Wavespell. It'll be really important to take care of those things where if people have been mistreating each other, disrespecting each other, God's going to set things right with that. Okay, so just be aware of that. Shout out to my brother Kevin. He's Ken 150. So now we get into tone 8, which is a mirror kin, by the way, because its numbers 151. Right? We have blue self-existing hand, 148 is yellow overtone star, 149 is red rhythmic moon, 150 is white resonant dog, and tone 8 is blue galactic monkey. So, as I've said before, the galactic tone is always the seal that began the previous wave spell, and so all the energy that we experienced in the blue monkey wave spell is all expressed right here in a singular day, which acts as a sort of pop quiz to show us our current results, where we're at, what those previous... It really helps us to clarify what those 13 days were about, because sometimes you'll go through a wave spell and you don't really understand the point of it. Well, the galactic kin following that wave spell will always basically kind of show you. It gives you like a refresher in that sense. But it is the mirror of tone 6, which tone 8 from then on basically shows you the passive aspect of the wave spell more so, rather than the active principle, which is the first half. This is creation, this is reaction. That's why those two are anagrams. You have creation, reaction, right? This is the masculine, this is the feminine, right? So tone 8, in this case, it's the blue monkey, which the last wave spell was the Court of Magic, meaning that it was the blue wave spell in the blue castle of Burning, the western castle of Burning. And so it was basically sort of understanding our role in terms of like, what is our power? What is our magic in that sense? It kind of dispels the illusions of things and makes things a little bit more clear to us. And that's basically what it's going to kind of go back over. But remember, the very main, one of the main aspects of the blue monkey is being playful. So don't forget to be playful in that sense. Now we go into tone 9. Which is, oh yeah, by the way, I just want to mention something real quick of the previous one. So Ken 151, if you lay out the number line from 1 to 151, the very center digit, the centiger, is 76, by the way. So just be aware of that. And I'm not going to go on about 76, but you should know at this point if you're on my channel. Kin 152, basically, the solar tone, this is yellow solar human, is all about like revealing to people what their underlying intentions are. Well, I mean, I guess in this case, considering that it's the yellow human, but basically, the solar is, it's showing what is emanating from us. What are we pulsating? Like, what is, what's coming in us is dependent upon what we're putting out. In that sense, that's the whole aspect of the solar, which is very key, because of the seed, right, and all of that, right? So, in this case, it is of humanity. So, I guess it's a really good way to take care of a lot of those like underlying intentions that people may have if they're mistreating other people, or if there's like toxicity and stuff like that. The yellow solar human will really like basically make us all aware of our inner demons in that sense, because as a light is shined forth, you can see the shadows of things, right? So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like working through our the shadowy aspects of ourselves, which is basically understanding the repressed self and all the roads that we didn't take, right? So it's about also understanding that every human being is you on another path, just to be aware of that, right? So that would be really important for that, right? Just remember that every human being is a reflection of yourself. Now we get into the planetary tone, which is the time when the challenge manifests. Now we have to undertake the challenge, which in this case is the Red Skywalker, which is the prophet, right? So in a lot of ways, it's that the challenge of the spiritual seeker, right? The challenge is manifested where we as spiritual seekers must take that higher road in that sense. Don't do things for just mere mundane carnal consumption of things. No, do it for a higher purpose in spirituality, right? Obviously, not all of us are on that path, and even less of us are on higher levels, and even less of us are on those high levels. But I don't even know if what I just said makes sense, but it's basically the challenge of the spiritual seeker. So what you want to do is, at this point, people should not be ashamed of being that person who's on a spiritual path. They say, oh, the person is like always talking about spiritual things and crystals and yoga and stuff. Scrap that shame, scrap that embarrassment. Be yourself completely and authentically, because overcoming that challenge is a great reward. By the way, it is a great reward, especially considering the power of this number here and how that relates to the Vesica Pisces, and how it relates to Christ, how it relates to the flame, right? The flame of a candle, which is, it's this thing right here, the shape of a candle flame, right? That's the center of the Vesica Pisces, right? Which is also related to leaves, right? Like if you look at the leaf of a magnolia tree, it's basically the Vesica Pisces. Many other trees, not all trees, but basically what it represents is that center vessel through which those seeds are coming. So just remember that, look to the sun, because the sun has the most powerful, prominent seeds that we need to take in and then also emanate in the world, which is interesting how it's related to the solar human, because you want to be like a solar human, right? You want to be that truth speaker. You want to enlighten things. You want and enlighten other people. You want to radiate that solar energy, and therefore you need to take in that solar energy. So if you can't always solar gaze, if you don't get a good sunrise, sunset type of thing, or whatever, just candle gaze. Stare into that candle flame, because that's like a little yellow seed, right? Of, it's like basically a tiny little version of the sun in that sense. So 153 relates to that candle flame, and which, by the way, the whole thing of like the land of milk and honey, that's sunlight and moonlight, as well as Odin and the Norse mythology, drinking the mead out of the three horns or whatever. Yeah, the mead and the honey represent that spiritual knowledge, which is the solar light. It is that solar, it's like when you look at the trumpet on the judgment card and the tarot, the major arcana, that's the bottom of the hyperbola. That's the word of God coming out through the sunlight, and we are absorbing that. So, be out in the sun, absorb it through your skin, solar gaze, and this and that, right? Because you want to take in that solar energy in order to output it in that sense. You want to overcome the challenge that is presented to us as spiritual seekers. You don't want to shirk that, one, because it's the right thing to do, and the more egotistical reason is you want to be received. Oh, no, I want to say egotistical, but you want to be received up into glory. You don't want to just be cool and show off, but you want to be received up into glory, and you want to glorify Christ in others. But in order for you to glorify Christ in others, they have to witness Christ in you. So you have to embody that. You have to embody the energy that is Christ in order to start seeing it in other people. In a sense, you have to be like a little solar generator, constantly throwing out those seeds, so that way it'll start to grow inside them, and then you can start to see Christ in other people. When those seeds get in them, then it takes time, but they will then start. It's like infectious. We have to replace all these negative, bad viruses with viruses of good and enlightenment and truth, and that comes from the solar energy. Because that's the red planetary skywalker. This is going to be happening all across the world, right? Because the planetary doesn't only mean of its quality of the manifestation of challenge, but it also refers to the whole system, the planetary, right? At least down here on the Earth. But, planet also means wandering star, so it also relates to the heavens. So just be aware of that. So that's Kin 153. Mathematically speaking, that number is super important, right? But now we go into tone 11, which is the release. We've done the challenge. Challenge is over for the Wavespell. Now we're depending on how that happened, right? We are now shedding all that ego that got caught up, right? You know what I mean? Because when the challenge of the tone 10 seal comes along, it basically it's like, it's a struggle, and when that happens, energy gets binded up, and it's just it gets frustrated in that sense, and it becomes clear. And so in a lot of ways, we have to then shed that, right? Which is what happens with tone 11. It breaks away all that unnecessary baggage and energy, cleanses us, purifies us, it helps things to dissolve. And then what is left shining forth? Well, this time it's the wizard, right? Which is the problem solver. So if you have been this sort of problem solver for a long time, and you've been overlooked, or you're going through challenge, or they're calling you Gandalf Stormcrow, or whatever, if you've been acting as the role of Odin or Gandalf, Mithrandir, the Grey Wanderer, whatever, if you've been fulfilling that role of the White Wizard, and you've been facing nothing but Balrogs and trolls and all this, right? Well, don't worry, because when that comes, this thing will help to break up a lot of that stagnant karma, and knock people down if they're on pedestals of abusing other people and stuff like that. Once that gets shed, boom, the light that's going to be shining forth, that spectralized form, in that sense, that inner light body form, will be the wizard. And so we'll basically start to identify each other as wizards. and who are wizards and this and that. It's basically every time that the white wizard comes along, it's really interesting to think of both Odin and Gandalf, okay, because they embody this sort of archetype, right? Because the white wizard is seal number 14, which is going back to the hand, right? You have the 14 phalanges, right? 14 is that first number right outside the vibrational field of 1 to 13, right? And so it's basically like the person who has the awareness of the vibrational field in their hands, right? So you want to take that knowledge and utilize it for the greater good in that sense. And it's always tone 11 is always antipodal to the kin that began the wave spells. So the wizard has this sort of power, right? They have that sort of power of enchantment. They have great magical ability, right? But we also have to understand the purpose that's coming down from God, right? And that's the yellow seed, right? That's the knowledge that's coming to us from on high, right? So it's not just about your own ability to, use your hands and your skills and this and that, but it's also about doing it for a higher purpose in that sense. So that's that antipodal relationship between the wizard and the seed. The seed is the information coming directly from God, and the wizard is the one who carries it out, right? So if you have been utilizing that wizard power but not for the greater good, then this is going to help fix that. Now we got to tone 12, which is the crystal tone. So we just went from yellow solar human to red planetary skywalker, and then white spectral wizard. Now we get into tone 12, which is blue crystal eagle. Which is the end of the Omega run, right? So from this kin, 146, to this one, 155, that is essentially the main one of the main cycles within the Tzolk'in, right? Maya depicted them as 10 galactic activation portals in a row, right? But again, the Omega is more of the passive aspect. Remember that, okay? So it's just a matter of having presence and being, right? Being present and understanding what it is that you're observing, right? Both in yourself and in your story and other people. Tone 12 is where basically it's all about dedicating our energy and our focus towards the greater good, right? It's the whole system operating as one universal body in that sense. And in this case, it's the blue eagle, which is the higher vision of things, right? The better world that we want to create, right? The deeper spiritual realms and the higher dimensions that exist beyond our current level and state of awareness. See, the interesting thing about the blue eagle and the yellow seed is that they're analogs to each other, meaning they support each other, right? So the yellow seed is the actual visions and the ideas coming directly from God, but the blue eagle is that seer that goes into those realms of those higher dimensions and flies higher, which, as you know, when you go into the higher dimensions, you're going deeper into yourself, because that's what the whole pyramid with the capstone is. It points upwards, but it's also pointing to the Sabbath, when you fold the cube back up. So it's pointing to the center, right? So you have to fly through these blue realms, these blue-black realms of the darkness within to get to those seeds, which as they grow, give us a more clear picture, right? So it's the power of the vision. Remember that. And that's what Kin 155 is all about. That cooperative effort at a better future for our own community and our own society and our own species and this and that, right? And so that'll conclude the Omega run. And then Tone 12 is whenever basically the whole system is acting as one um, cohesive unit in that sense. Um, Now, Tone 13 is basically all about concluding the wave spell. It's basically the last chapter of it, or the last section of it, which basically wraps everything up. It shows us what the purpose of it was all about. And it's basically um, converting that energy and transporting it to the next one, which will begin the next wave spell. The interesting thing about the yellow seed wave spell is that it is the yellow wave spell in the blue castle, right? So the blue castle, it's got, you know, the mirror and the monkey, right? Which is the whole transformational aspect of the Tzolk'in, right? And then when you get into the yellow of the blue, right, it's kind of giving you a preview of the greater state of enlightenment that humanity is basically reaching to. But not only humanity, but all of the natural phenomena. Like it's showing us the next level of not only ourselves, but of the whole world in this sense, right? The cosmos. It's only showing us a preview. It's only basically showing us like our potential. And the main hurdle to overcome is people's thoughts, because that's the thing, is the seeds and the plants, fruit and the garden and the vineyard, all of that represents the state of our consciousness, right? And the main hurdle to overcome is people's resistance to ideas, people's resistance to communication, and their egos is going to be the biggest problem, right? Because people believe themselves to be their thought patterns. They believe themselves to be the words that's flowing through their head. That's going to be the biggest thing to overcome. But if we do overcome it, then it's basically showing us a better future, because it's not complete yet. It's not done yet, because after this one, we step into the Red Earth wave spell, which begins the Yellow Castle, which is basically goes Red Earth wave spell, White Dog wave spell, Blue Knight wave spell, and Yellow Warrior wave spell. And those in that castle, the Yellow Castle, is all about the Great War in that sense, right? The Yellow Castle is all about defeating death. It's about defeating the that collective bad energy and going to war with it and defeating it and destroying it, right? That's what the Yellow Castle is all about, because it culminates with the Blue Knight and then the Yellow Warrior wave spells, which are all Saturnian energy, right? It's at the time when evolution is at its highest state, right? But then evil comes in and usurps it, right? And so it's about overthrowing that or preventing it from falling into decay as it has before in the past, right? It's about taking that next level up. So even though it's not, this whole Tzolk'in is not done yet, we're stepping in to the Seed Wave spell, which is showing us the reward and the result if we continue on the path of doing what's right. It'll show us the great things to come in that sense. And that's what the Green Castle is about, because then we go, after this wave spell, we go into the Yellow, which is the time of rooting out evil and rooting out the negative unconscious energy that's been festering in the world, whether they be in people or whether they be in society or the community, whatever. We're rooting that out. That's what the Yellow Castle is about, is that great war. And then the Green Castle is basically the time of peace and plenty. It is the enchanted castle in that sense. It is the Garden of Eden in that sense. It's whenever it's the Renaissance. It's freedom. It's liberation. And that happens for 52 days every Tzolk'in. So, we're just going to be stepping into it again. But this Yellow Cosmic Warrior, Ken 156, is showing us that it's kind of preparing us for the coming castle after this kin. In a sense, it's showing us what we as people of intelligence, the truth seekers, and the truth speakers, and those who have always fought for the greater good, right? It's going to be showing us, like, in one day what the Yellow Castle is going to be about, right? But don't worry, because uh, we are in highly prophetic times, and I've seen miracle after miracle happening. Like, it, we truly are in the golden age in that sense. It just doesn't appear as that yet to most people, especially. It looks like it's all doom and gloom, but no, we're stepping into an amazing life for everybody being incarnated into this world right now. But that's what the Cosmic Warrior is about. This particular number also is very key with the cube journey and everything like that. But yeah, like, that's the yellow seed wave spell. The main thing to understand is that the seed, what that means is it represents energy ultimately. And energy is not just a fuel that your body takes in order to convert it into action. Energy is a manifestation of idea, intelligence, memory. It's basically like turning the page in a book, and then you start reading, and it's revealing newer things. It's rebirthing things. It's bringing in new energy and constantly refining the self, refining the world, and it's that next step, right? And we want to always go and take that next step, right? Because, you know, the more that we, in this sense, enlighten ourselves and the people around us and the world at large, the better our lives become. We don't want to stay at our current level. Not to say that being stagnant in and of itself is a bad thing necessarily, but if we are stagnant at where we're at now, it's a bad thing. We want to improve. We want to take those next steps and climb up the ladder in that sense. So just remember that, this is a highly biblical thing, right? With Kin 144 and the yellow seed wave spell. This number 144 is mentioned in Revelation multiple different times, both as 144, as well as, if you look at 144 and then you just add a 0 on the end of it, right? You get the number of minutes in a day, which again, the day, it's referring to the same exact process of the sun and the moon and this constant mercurial evolution as things keep rolling, things keep moving, right? It's also mentioned as 144,000 in Revelation, which is interesting because that's a Bakhtin. In the Mayan cycles, that's basically a Bakhtin, right? And also, supposedly with the, and I don't know this to that great of detail, but the channels throughout the body that connect all the chakras. Apparently, there's 144,000 of them. Like, I think they're called nadis, and there's 72,000 in one half of the body and 72,000 on the other half, right? So, there's just a lot of references to this number 144 in multiple different mediums, multiple different books, multiple different spiritual things, and including the Holy Bible, right? So it is a dozen of a dozen. And yeah, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of intelligence, there's a lot of newer perspectives and aspects to a lot of things contained within this wave spell, which begins tomorrow. So just be aware of that. And yeah, this will be cool to look at for posterity's sake in like 3 or so years or something like that, because that's the interesting thing about watching the Law of Time is it is, I mean, the Tzolk'in at large, right? The 260-day sequence, like I've said before, is not only characterizing the different energy over 260 days, but the whole thing in and of itself is a module to understand the present moment. Because just like how the year, the Hob in this sense, the 364 days plus the day at a time, it's a large cycle which is comprised of summer and winter, autumn and spring and autumn. But that cycle is also contained within the day as well. The daytime is the summer, the nighttime is the winter. Springtime is when the time at dawn, when the sun rises and night goes but day arrives, and then autumn is whenever day goes away and night comes, the equatorial or the equinoctial aspects. So just as like the day is a smaller version of the year, and the year is like a smaller version of our whole lives, and our whole lives are representations of the grand cosmic scheme, right? This is just that aspect that is repeating itself on many different dimensional levels, different fractal levels of the process of learning. That's what all this is about, right? And it just so happens to be for the next 13 days. And it'll come back 260 days later, and then 260 days after that, but it represents just the process within a day of the time to learn. That's it. So just be aware of that, right? This 144, the yellow seed, all of that is about understanding the Word of God, which is not just things written down in the Bible. The Word of God is the pure energy radiating from God through His sun and through His moon that is being rained down on us as light, right? Sound waves in the ether, as milk and honey, running as like fluids down and through the ether, and we are absorbing it, right? Of His great son and His great daughter, and they are teaching us, and we are evolving and adapting based upon their lights, which is the Word of God, which is all knowledge, all wisdom, anything that is ever going to pass through here and through us, coming down from the sun and the moon, the two great lights, right? Or the greater light and the lesser light. The two trees in Tolkien's Legendarium, the milk and the honey, the same thing. It's the same thing. So just be aware of that. And this is a great time to learn stuff like that. So, but I don't want to make this video any longer. So yeah, I don't know, like I was going to make some other videos regarding certain things, but I don't know. I really don't care for the whole YouTube thing or the online presence, just because I don't know. I don't like the whole idea of like just. I mean, yeah, it's good when people can do it efficiently and get knowledge out to people and stuff like that. Because if it wasn't like that, then I wouldn't know a lot of things and I wouldn't understand a lot of things. But at the same time, it's just like I just don't really like that kind of pressure. I deal with pressure I deal with a different kind of pressure. And yeah, going back to the energy that I was talking about with these two, it's basically pressure, and yeah, I wish that I had the time and I had the energy and the technology to make way better videos and, have better programming for you. But, I just, yeah, it's like I want to do it, but it's just like, I guess other things take precedence. But one of these days I'm going to make like a non-Wavespell video. But for right now, I just got so much going on in my life that I'm focused on other things. But yeah, I just feel like if I'm gonna make a video outside of these Wavespell forecasts, I want it to be like, I want it to be good. And not to say that I couldn't produce a video, you know, with a bunch of good content in it or anything like that. It's just I feel like, I don't know. I guess I'm more focused upon the people of my everyday life, like the people that I work with at my job, as well as the people who I see in my personal life. I'm just more focused on that, and also writing my book, and just, I don't know. I don't know. I've never really vibed, I guess, with the whole keeping up with appearances online or anything. I just, you know, I'm a homeschool kid that moved around a lot and was always hanging out with kids in the street. And I guess that's just, you know, I don't know. But maybe when I get more viewers and people like commenting and stuff like that, maybe I might get into it a little bit more seriously. But as of right now, I'm just kind of like trendy or passing through. Yeah, I'll see y'all later.